Hello and welcome to my Saab 9-3. I bought it in December 2022 and at the time it had 93,000 miles on the clock. It's now up to 125,000 miles and looking through the car's history I can't find any mention of any replacement suspension components and accordingly it's buggered. To be fair, I haven't exactly been easy on it. When I'm out filming, bumping it up curbs and driving down dirt tracks fit for a Jimny is fairly standard procedure. With that in mind, today we're going to refresh the suspension and at the same time hopefully upgrade the stock setup to something a little bit more better. The first thing you're going to need is a workshop with tools and ramps. Here is one. Let's have a look at some of the parts that we're going to be fitting. As you might imagine, I've done things correctly. I wanted to upgrade the suspension, but not make it shit. If you lower your car too much, it drives like garbage on UK roads. So, I've got some Bilstein B6 shock absorbers to go on all round. They're beefier than the stock ones, but not so much that it's going to ruin your spine. Springs. There's no stupid lowering springs going on here. And more importantly than any of that, I've got new bump stops, spring mounts, top mounts for the front, rear, that I can't reach, bump stops, rear top mounts. All of the new mounts and everything else is what's going to make the car ride like an absolute dream. It's one thing to change the shocks and the springs, but if you don't do all of the rest of it, what's the point? We're going to put all of this on the car now. I say we, Rich is going to put it all on the car for us and present me with an invoice at the end of the day, which hopefully is tax deductible. Let's have a quick look at the tools we're going to need.
Tell you what, go straight there and you've nailed it. Nailed it!
Cheeky bastard.
Hercules.
Talk to spec, I promise you. They really were.
Yeah, just not the spec for it.
Just sadly a different specification, yes. With the front wheels forcefully removed, oh, somebody needs some new tyres, we can reveal the knackered suspension that's been on the car since new. Removing the shocks is fairly straightforward when you've got a mechanic and workshop. Undo the two lower bolts holding the strut, remove the bracket on the strut that holds the ABS wiring and brake line, undo the drop link, and lastly, there are 3 bolts to remove on the top in the engine bay. When that's all out, gently tug and the whole assembly will lift out with ease.
Let go, you bastard. Do we need this?
Oh, the boots. Oh. So yeah, we're going to need those. Which are probably, yes. Well, I haven't done things quite as properly as I thought because I forgot to order replacement inner gaiters, boots, whatever these are. So we're going to salvage what's on there and put them on the new bits. It would have been a straight part swap otherwise. So to do that, we need to undo the top nut of the strut. Top mount comes off and then we can remove it. Easy. We're having problems. It's fighting us. We can't get the top mount off the strut to take out those gaiters that we so desperately needed.
If you listen carefully, you can hear it laughing at us.
In Swedish. Yes! We've nearly achieved what we wanted to achieve, but I just wanted to show you this because this is the shock absorber that's come off the car, obviously, and I shouldn't be able to do that. In fact, that doesn't work. These are the top mount bearings, and a new one will rotate silently, thusly. No noise at all. Beautiful. The old one, can you hear this? That's literally the worst I've ever seen on a car. Oh, what have you done? Ah, that's £104 you owe me.
I've got some yellow paint.
Well, you better get it out. I thought I'd show you the difference between the springs that we're fitting. This is how you lower your car, but without ruining it. So on your right-hand side, these are the original springs that would have come with the car. These are the new ones, quite obviously. These are from a Saab Aero, which is effectively Saab's sports model. We'll say that very loosely. It's what, 10, maybe 15 mil difference over the stock spring. So it should give us slightly better handling, but without ruining the ride. Sensible choice. And, bit of advice for you, Bilstein B6 shocks have internal bump stops, which I only learned about today. So this was a waste of money.
What are you doing?
I'm just cleaning up the bracketry that holds the ABS sensors onto the shock, because you might as well when you're taking the bits off. Basically removing best part of, what, 15, 20 years worth of shit. These are the only jobs I'm trusted with. Front shock assembly is completed. Fitting them is a piece of cake. Jam it in, line it all up and insert the 2 lower bolts, of course being sure to torque to spec.
What was the torque setting on these?
Yep.
Yes.
Handy hint, when you're fitting your new shock absorber assembly to your Saab 9.3, make sure you line up and rotate the shock to fit the mounting holes on the top. Because if you don't, you're going to have to remove the whole assembly and rotate it, put it back in.
And that's what it looks like afterwards.
Definitely okay. We've moved on to the rear suspension now. We thought this would be a bit of a ball ache, and yes, it certainly is big. The problem with the Saab rear suspension are these 3 bolts here, which hold the top mounts for the strut assembly in. They mount through here on the chassis, but you'll notice this massive hole here where all of the dirt and water gets in and collects down there and then corrodes this whole area, meaning these bolts don't really come out easily. We have managed to do the other side so far. Hopefully this side is just as straightforward. We shall see. But if you are doing the rear suspension on the Saab, you're going to want to watch out for this, because if these snap, if something breaks, you're in a world of ball ache trying to sort it all out. With that in mind, grab your ducker and go full send. If you're lucky like we were, the mounts will handily remove themselves. That's a piece of the rear top mount, or strut mount, that's just crumbled off completely. Yay! Do you need a hand, mate?
There is something you can do, actually. I'm not sure if you'll be able to handle it, but I'll show you.
Yay, helping! The milk goes in after the tea. I'll put your cup of tea here, Rich. Just out of reach. Put your cup of coffee. Got it?
Thank you.
Cheers.
Well done, you did the job.
Disgusting. Here's what it looks like with the rear top mounts removed, and after a little bit of persuasion we were able to remove the rear shock absorber, allowing us to turn our attention to the rear springs that are definitely fit for the bin. To remove these, you'll need to undo the lower trailing arm bolt before levering the arm downwards so that you can pull out the spring and associated mounts. I've been given another job to do. This one's a little bit more glamorous than making the tea. These are the bolts that came out of the rear top mounts. The threads on them, as you can see, are full of crud, corrosion, dirt, and basically detritus and shit. So the intention is to wire brush all of that off so they're nice and clean and we can bolt them straight back in. Having fitted the new rear springs and their associated bits, we can bolt in the trailing arm. Handy hint, using a jack makes this very easy. Now we can bolt in the rear strut top mounts, and when it's all finished, it should look a bit like this. On go the wheels, and that's the job done. Looking over all of the parts we replaced, it's quite clear that these are fit for only one thing. Right, we've taken the car out of the workshop and we're going to give it a little spin around the estate to see if everything is as it should be. Look at that.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, one more, hang on. Shut up. We're a bit fast, but nothing wrong with that. It's now a few days later and I've done several hundred miles already, so I think it's fair to say the suspension is bedded in nicely. I've given it a thorough test by way of blatting it up and down your typical English B road, and the setup is exactly what I wanted. The car's a lot better to drive, it's certainly more stable, but most importantly, the ride hasn't been compromised. So how much did this little setup cost then? Well, the Bilstein B6 shocks came in at £412 for the set, the Saab Aero springs £185, the front and rear top mounts all round £115, and then all the extra rubber bits and mounts and stuff stuff like that was an extra £60. Of course, there's a labour charge to add on to that as well. Workshops and mechanics aren't free. This, of course, is going to vary depending on where you are and what garage you use, but for me it cost £300, giving us a grand total of £1,072. Is that worth it? Well, yes, I think it is, because the car drives like new. You could do it cheaper. Shopping around, I managed to get the price down to around £700, including labour, but that's using the cheapest parts that I could find, and it didn't include things like the rubber mounts, the bump stops, and all of that sort of stuff. Of course, cheap parts are cheap for a reason, and if you don't replace all of the components in the setup, like I said earlier, what's the point? Why don't you just fit coilovers, dickhead? Because coilovers are for idiots. I can get a cheap set of coilovers for about £400 or £500, plus the labour. I'm in for a total bill of about £700 or £800. But coilovers are rubbish on UK roads. The car's going to drive like a sack of shit. I could spend £1,000 or more on a much better set of coilovers, add in the labour, and my total bill's about £1,300. But the thing is, the M6 motorway is not Silverstone. It's still going to drive like a sack of shit. To be fair, it's not the fault of the coilovers on that occasion, more down to the condition of our roads. So what have we learned? Well, I think the setup I've fitted offers the best balance of price, ride comfort, drivability and longevity. Hopefully we're not going to need to change the suspension again for another 125,000 miles. Join me next time when we'll be putting this 125,000 mile oil burner on the dyno to see how much power it doesn't have. Can it beat a Citroen Saxo? We'll find out then. Take care, thanks for watching.